Okay, so let's talk about death benefit options. Something that is unique with universal life is that there is multiple death benefit options that you can choose from, and it has a big impact on the costs that are associated with your policy, right? The whole life policy, because it's built on a guarantee, they have to have predetermined things so that the insurance company can price it in a way that they know that they can back up the guarantee that they're giving, right? So it's not as flexible in what the premiums are, because they have to receive a certain premium to be able to know that they can honor the guarantee. That's one of the virtues of a whole life, is that it's very predictable and set and doesn't have any moving pieces. A universal life policy, on the other hand, has lots of, well, I wouldn't say lots of moving pieces in a negative way, but it has options. Bottom line, it has options, and it's a flexible premium policy, right? And so as a result, there's some things you can do to be able to utilize these, and that's where experts like myself in these products are valuable, to be able to know how to structure these in a way that's going to set you up for success. Because any horror story that you've ever heard about with a universal life, there's a backstory there of how it was structured that isn't really part of the story that caused this XYZ horror story, type of a thing. So in the right context, structured in the right way, in the right context, none of these things are really even possible per se, that are talked about often as it relates to universal life, and specifically index universal life. So with that, let's dive into this option A, option B death benefit. There's option A and option B, level or increasing. And the way the option A works is that, let's say you had $500,000 in death benefit and zero cash. It's a level death benefit, and you were to pass away, you're going to get $500,000 of life insurance. Okay, but let's say there was $100,000 in cash, right? $100,000 in cash, and you were to pass away. What would you get? Well, you would get $500,000 as a death benefit. Now, this is where a lot of people say, well, you don't get your cash value. You only get you either get your cash value or your death benefit. You don't get both. Okay? Well, on paper it might look like that when you say, hey, I had a $500,000 policy, I had $100,000 cash, and my death benefit was $500,000. Okay? The problem is that that's not really what's going on. What's going on is, as you pay into this and as you accumulate cash, you're technically buying less and less insurance. Okay? So as a result of this less and less insurance, you're buying less and less, okay? And so even though there's a total of $500 paid out, you are getting your cash plus a death benefit. Whatever this is at that moment, that death benefit, you're getting your cash plus your death benefit every single time in these policies. It's just a matter of how are we calculating the death benefit. It's not about the total that pays out. It's about how is it calculated? The proportion, or the portion of your payout that's your cash, and the portion that is actual death benefit, right? So as your cash gets above that $500,000, I'll erase some of this, right? As your death benefit gets above this $500,000, there creates this little window, right, called corridor, and there's a small portion of insurance. And the majority of what's going to pay out is the cash, right? So this is actually where costs can actually get cheaper over time, potentially, if we were to do that. So then if that's the case, why would you ever want option B? Well, option B is, let's say you have the same $500,000 of death benefit, right? Zero cash, pays out $500,000, but actually let's do this here, 500, 0, okay, so this goes up to $100,000. this goes up by 100,000. So you're always going to have $500,000 up and above whatever your cash is. So in this case, the payout would be 600,000 because you're getting 100% of the cash and 100% of the death benefit. Now, this is great because you're getting 100% of the cash and 100% of the death benefit all the time. The disadvantage is that by always maintaining a $500,000 buffer above your cash, on the back end it could get very expensive. And so what we do is use these two combined, because you can switch. You don't have to just choose one or the other. You can actually switch between death benefit options. And so there's also a difference too in these options of how much money you can put into them. As you may already know, based off of your age and the amount of insurance, there's a minimum and a maximum that you can contribute, right? Often called a 7-pay or guideline annual, or you know, with whole life, there's really not as much flexibility unless you have a paid up additions rider, and that gives you the flexibility to put in, you know, kind of what you want. But here, with a universal life, depending on your age and the amount of insurance, there's a minimum and a maximum amount of insurance or contribution you can make, right? And depending on what death benefit option you choose, A or B, determines what that minimum and maximum is, okay? So for example, let's say that you wanted to have a maximum contribution of $25,000 a year, right? Well, you know, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that's going to be, but let's just say $25,000 a year, you're going to have to get $500,000 of death benefit, right? With an option B. So if you want to have $25,000 as a death benefit, I'm just pulling a number out of the air. Is you know, let's say it's $500,000 of death benefit, okay, to get you that $25,000 max. The same $25,000 max, though, with an option A, you might need to have $750,000 or $1 million of insurance to be able to get that same max of $25,000, right? And so, what you can do, especially with this infinite banking concept, the idea is to have kind of the least amount of insurance with the maximum amount of your contribution going into your account to build up so you can utilize, right? Well, and so what you can do is you can start with an option B, and when the costs are low, and be able to have put in the $25,000 in this case and just stuff it full, okay? But when you're done funding this, whether that's retirement or 10 years or 20 years or a certain period of time, whatever the case is, when you're done funding it and it's going to fund itself, right? Then that's when you switch to option A, because you no longer need that benefit of having a high max contribution, because you're no longer contributing anymore. So by making the switch from option A to option B, now you can dramatically reduce your costs potentially in the policy. Now, in a previous video where I compared a whole life to universal life, there's a guy that we switched these death benefit options, and his cost went from dropped by like 50% or more, right, by switching from option A to option B. Okay, and so you can dramatically reduce the cost on the back end by using these two death benefit options in tandem, right, together. It doesn't have to be either or, and you can maximize your policy and get the biggest bang for your buck as far as your cash. And that's why you have people like myself and my team to be able to help in that scenario, to be able to help you structure these things in the proper way, type of a thing. Leave your comments below and subscribe, and let's go have some fun together.